try and make this as fast as I can for today. So thank you to the organizing team for this invitation on behalf of our colleagues here as well. So June is following online, and I think I also saw my colleague Yazid in the room. I'm not sure if he's still around. Thanks for this invitation. I have to congratulate Uganda belatedly for also really kicking off this initiative of national DNS forums. Really happy to see, this one's taking root in the spirit of the Africa DNS Forum, which is the umbrella forum. The intention really was to use that as a catalyst to have as many of these initiatives taking place at the national level. As we know, the actual action is at the national level, so this is really commendable. So Cliff and your team, congratulations for making this happen, and hopefully we will continue collaborating even into the future events. So very quickly, I will take you through something different. Again, around the DNS, a lot is happening. And this is just one of those that is also happening elsewhere, which is also relevant for Uganda as a country and the stakeholders in Uganda. And it's a discussion that we've been having for nearly 2 years now across different regions, countries, stakeholder groupings, and also events. So hopefully this will also be interesting for the participants today and in the room. And I have to encourage you to really, ask questions as much as you'd like, and hopefully time allows for that as well. So I'll very quickly touch on a very broad topic. Ideally, you need probably a day to discuss whatever you're seeing in front of you here. This particular slide has got 3 broad concepts. So at the very top, you see something called New gTLDs program, next round, in one sentence, and then below it you see a more inclusive internet, courtesy of the new generic top-level domain names. How are those related, and why is that important? So hopefully in the next 15 or so minutes, maybe we'll try and make sense of this. But suffices to say that we are talking about a new gTLD program. So gTLDs are domain names, broadly, which stems from ICANN's name itself. If you see ICANN's logo down there, it is a double N. So ICANN is ICANN. The first N is names, and the second N is numbers. So what ICANN really is in the business of doing on an everyday basis revolves around names and numbers. And to make that happen, a lot of things happen in the background. And obviously some of you are already participating in various structures and ecosystems and communities and committees within the ICANN ecosystem, be it within names or numbers, as it may be. So today we'll really talk about names very narrowly, but also even in names, obviously you all know that we have 3 broad categories of names, depending on how you look at it. You have country code names, and you've talked about .ug variously in this discussion since morning. You have generic names, which is what we are talking about now, new generic top-level domain names. But you can also have internationalized domain names, which can either be country code names or generic names. So depending on how you look at this, you broadly have 3 types of domain names. So for this particular discussion, I am zeroing in on generic top-level domain names. Okay, so I hope that quick clarification help us to really refocus what we are discussing today, and how these names exist in the universe of the rest of the names, but also by extension how they work with numbers. So we are talking about a new gTLD program, which ICANN is in the process of rolling out. And I have to say, this is sort of the final stage of what started within the community. As you know, ICANN is a bottom-up, organization where policies come from the community, and if they achieve consensus, they are approved by the board, and then the board directs the organization to implement. And one of those policies is something that we are calling the SAPRO Final Report, which was a consolidated 5 years of work, which recommended that ICANN rolls out another round of new gTLD program. So when we are saying, or when we refer to next round, we are referring to this particular program that is currently being implemented, that will see the launch of a new invitation for applications for new gTLDs. In other words, and you will see this in the timeline that I will display, very soon we will be opening up space or applications for top-level domains, or anyone who would like to apply for a top-level name, if that name does not exist today. So for example, .kampala, as an example, does not exist today. If someone would want to apply for that when this round opens, then they will have a chance to apply for that. So this is why we are calling it new gTLDs next round. Someone has allowed me to put my video on, and I hope it's visible. But why is it being called next round? Because we still have a new gTLD program that is still running, and we are calling that the 2012 round. So because there's already a new gTLD program that is not closed, and then a new one has been launched, yet to be opened in the next 9 or so months, we struggled on how to really distinctly refer to the two programs. So the 2012 round, which is still open in terms of some of the names that were applied for during that time, are still not concluded yet. So therefore, as a program, it is still open within ICANN. And then we are already in the process of implementing another one. So to distinguish between the two, this current one is called the next round. And apologies for taking a lot of time to clarify these two projects. So very quickly, the namespace or the gTLD space or the DNS space, the extension, just like the internet, has been evolving over the years. If I went through the history of the evolution, it's a very long history. And it is until 2012 when one of the largest expansions happened in the domain name space. In other words, in the year 2012, ICANN opened up applications for new gTLDs. And out of that, by the time the application window closed, we received, as you will see shortly, close to 2,000 applications. And to date, as we speak today, out of those 2,000 applications, more than 1,200 plus names have been already deployed or delegated into the domain name space or the root zone. So those names range from, they are long, they are different scripts, they are short. You are used to seeing, 3-letter names before. So mail, net, org, gov, com are the names that we used to have before 2012. So there were a total of 22 names. After that, today you have more than 1,300 new gTLDs. And you'll notice an interesting fact with those names is that you now have names that are written in letters or characters that are not 0 to 9 or A to Z. We call such names internationalized domain names. So for example, if you were to write in Chinese or in Arabic or in Cyrillic, the name football in this case, it will still be .football, but in a different writing script. So we call that an internationalized domain name. This expansion has made it possible for this to happen. So when we talk about a more inclusive internet here, it is inclusive in the sense that it is allowing people that write differently in non-Latin script, as some of you know. Latin script is your 0 to 9 and A to Z. Obviously, if you only know how to write in Arabic, then you cannot read, anything written in Latin script. But you still need to consume and to access the DNS or domain names in the writing script that you understand. So this is also a very important objective of this particular round, and to keep opening the namespace, to keep allowing other ways of writing to be able to be accommodated in the domain namespace. So that's part of the mission and objectives of expanding the domain namespace. So in theory today, we have more than 1,300 gTLDs. We also have, give or take, around 200 ccTLDs. So that means that we do have, cumulatively almost 1,500 names out there. So, .c, .ug, .ke, .tz, that long list of countries is around 200, as those are countries or territories that are recognized by the UN. If you add that to gTLDs, you are talking about 1,500 gTLDs plus ccTLDs out there. Now that means that as an end user who wants just a domain name, say bob.ke, I have, in theory, 1,300 options, or 1,500 actually, options to choose from. I could go for bob.ke or bob.africa or bob.com or bob.cape town. So that is really an exercise that allows me choice as an end user or as a registrant, as we call ourselves, but also sparse competition in the namespace, which is actually a catalyst for innovation on how people do use domain names. So these are the broader objectives of really expanding and introducing new names through further rounds in the namespace as we go along. Maybe just a moment to depict or paint a picture of how the names ecosystem is arranged today. All of them start with R, so if you look at my extreme left, this is my left, your left as well, if you're looking at the screen, where you see the registry operator, which is the organization that maintains the master database of all domain names in a particular top-level domain. So you have a registry operator for each of these TLDs. There's a registry operator for .football, .menu, .com, .brand, .ug, .ke. So you have as many registry operators in theory as the TLDs themselves. But I must add that one registry operator can, operate more than one top-level domain. So it is possible to have, say, 50 TLDs under one registry operator. But there will not be multiple registry operators for more than one TLD. So you cannot have a registry operator for .ug. You cannot have more than one registry operator for .ug or .football or .ceo. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Then in between, we have organizations that are called registrars. So this is where you as a registrant get your domain names. Typically, they're your ISPs that have registered with the registry operator, and therefore they have a relationship with the registry operator through which allows you, the registrant, at the extreme end, to easily register your name. If I were to give a typical example in Uganda, if you're using mobile money, potentially you don't go to the telco. If I were to use Safaricom here in Kenya, where we use M-Pesa, I don't need to go to Safaricom to register for M-Pesa. I can go to an M-Pesa agent. So while I'm the one who wants to register for M-Pesa, Safaricom is the registry operator. I go to an agent, which is a registrar, that has got a relationship with Safaricom, and therefore they're able to attend to me very close to wherever I am, which necessarily doesn't need Safaricom to be there. So this is how the names industry is organized. And if you open the numbers industry or ecosystem, you'll find a different structure that side. So very quickly moving to the new gTLD program next round itself, in the interest of time, as I already indicated in the last round, and the reason why we are calling this particular round the next round, and if it's confusing, I understand. The last round was in 2012. And by the time the application period closed, we had, give or take, around 2,000 applications. This was the distribution across different regions in terms of how many applications came from the different regions. You could see how we compare, say, for example, with North America and Europe and South America. We had 17 applications from Africa, largely, ideally, from one country in Africa. And out of those 17 applications, I think around 4 of them are live today, and all of them that are live are from South Africa. That is Cape Town, Africa, Durban, and Joburg. So question marks there. Why would you apply for a gTLD? Why would you consider applying for a gTLD in this coming round? Why would you consider applying for .kampala, for example? I don't know what interesting names you imagine in Uganda, but if I was in Kenya, for example, about .swahili or .safari, for example, or .kilimanjaro. I don't know if you'll fight over that with Tanzania. But there are different motivations for applying for a gTLD. It could be to manage your brand. Picture yourself as a brand. You know, you are famous telcos in Uganda, you know, MTN, for example. MTN already have their name, by the way. So look at those established brands who would like to control their name so that everything you know, is controlled, their digital assets are controlled under their own domain name. It could be to increase visibility. It could also be for monetization purposes, for example. If you picture a city, if I were to use Nairobi as an example, if they would like to offer services under .Nairobi as a digital asset and, you know, their online presence, so that if you are looking for a typical license as a trader in Nairobi, then you go to the .Nairobi page or .Nairobi online presence, and you'll actually be able to be served regardless of what you need. Then that is an exercise to actually increase credibility, but also control policies as you project your brand as an entity. So there are different motivations for applying for a gTLD, and they are not all for monetization, which is very important here. Not everyone that is registering a TLD, a top-level domain, is doing that to resell. So if you are to register .kampala, it might not be necessarily to offer it for people to register names under .kampala. It might just be for the city of Kampala to offer services under their own name. So this is very important, and we sometimes get this question whether, you know, gTLDs are all in competition with ccTLDs, and the answer is obviously no. It actually depends. If a brand registers their name, it will not be to offer registration to the public or to the mass market under their brand name. It will be to control their brand and to offer their own services under their brand. And to actually further make that point clear, there is a lot of use cases which we listed on you know, the gTLD, the next round website, on how these different TLDs have used their names. These are in the last round, how they have used their TLDs innovatively to offer, you know, specific use cases. Some are offering their names for mass market registrations, so meaning monetization. Others are not. So you have .Africa as a use case. We have .Amsterdam, which was seen as an opportunity to contribute to the city's branding as well. So you have city names that have actually utilized their names as brands to use their digital assets. You have .bank today, which is a very restricted name, and it's a selling point is to target banks because it is implementing policies that are unique to the security requirements for banks, which might not actually be relevant for other players that are not banks. So banks find this particular name interesting because it, by default, implements policies that affect banks by default. You have .bar, for example, and here is an interesting one because depending on where you went to school, bar can mean very many things. If you ask June, she knows a different type of bar because where she comes from, there is the bar and the bench. But where I come from, when you tell me bar, I think of other things. But that is how you can actually harness the power of a domain name to project a particular image, but also to target a particular constituency. So those are use cases. We have a lot of them, and they are available on our website. I actually invite you to visit and see. But moving very quickly, who can apply for a gTLD? So this is just the highlight of key information elements that you need to know. For you to apply for a gTLD, you need to be a legal entity, meaning you can't apply as an individual. So you have to be a registered entity, either a limited entity, a government, or intergovernmental organization of whatever nature. You can't apply as an individual, so you have to be an entity of some sort that can enter into a contract. When does this application start? We are projecting to start this in April next year, give or take around the 30th of April. And this application window will remain open for 12 to 15 weeks, after which we'll close it. How much does this cost you? Which is a big question indeed, especially in this part of the world. Something that we can come back to discuss. The application fee for the next round will be 227,000 USD. In the last round, in 2012, this fee was 185,000 USD. So all those applications that you saw there, each of them paid 185,000 USD in 2012. In 2026, the fee has been set at 227, which is a huge fee. I don't know what that translates to in Kenya shillings or in T shillings or in Uganda shillings, but by all means, it is not cheap to apply for a domain name. And therefore, the motivation has to be really compelling. And you really have to be very clear why you are investing that kind of resource into applying for a name. But yet again, the benefits also are debated depending on what direction you take. How will this application happen? So we are developing a system that is called the TLD Application Management System, or TAMS in short, through which the application will be processed and everything else about the application will actually be done on the TAMS system. Now, because of the fee set at 227,000 and the realization that this is pretty high, especially for a majority of the underserved regions, so you're looking at Africa, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and also Europe. You really, outside Europe and US, is considered underserved region. So part and parcel of this program is something that we are calling the next round applicant support program. Now, essentially, this applicant support program targets 4 broad categories of organizations to support by discounting the application fees, and you'll see the application discounting, you'll see the discount percentage. So if you are a not-for-profit or an intergovernmental organization or indigenous tribal peoples organization, this is, say, Maasai, for example, as an indigenous peoples organization, if they have, an entity and they would like to apply for a name of their choice, or you are a micro or small enterprise in a developing economy like Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and you'd want to apply for a name, then you qualify to get a discount. How does that discount look like? It is in 2 parts. You have a financial discount of up to 85% on the fee. In other words, you will get a discount of 85% on this fee. That leaves you with around 15% of 2027 as the applicable fee if you qualify to be supported under applicant support. So that's what we then pay if you're applying for a TLD in the next round under applicant support program. So essentially, we are also urging entities of this type, including intergovernmental organizations that have names of interest, but also small medium enterprise organizations. And our definition of small medium enterprise organizations here is an entity that is has an annual turnover of at least equal to or less than 5 million USD per year, which I believe includes a lot of organizations in Africa, actually, are in that category. So you can actually apply for a top-level name if you really want a name of interest, which you can actually package innovatively to use as you wish when this round opens. So you qualify for up to 85% fee reduction on that particular application. So this application process for applicant support has been happening since November last year. We have a lot of organizations that have already applied, and you can see this is the distribution globally at the moment. I have in Africa 7 applications already from 5 countries. Remember, we have 54 countries in Africa, so this uptake is still low, our expectation. And this particular application window is closing in November this year. So it's been open since November last year. It was to be open for 12 months, meaning in another 2 months, by November 19, 2025, the window for applicant support is closing. So this is also to urge, those organizations, if you know of any, please share with them that they can apply for applicant support if they really want to apply for a top-level name in 2026. You can see the performance of Asia Pacific. We have 15 applicants so far from 5 countries. It's the highest, and then we have North America where we have 11 applications. So this is the spread across different regions. And this is as at 19 August last month. So we do update these statistics every 20th of the month, and hopefully by the next iteration, maybe we'll see more numbers from the Africa region. Very quickly, so we have published a lot of supporting resources because we get quite a lot of questions in terms of, I don't know how to put together an application. I don't know what kind of a name I can apply for. I don't know how to develop a business case. So we have something called pro bono service support for these questions, for these organizations that are asking on how they can really package their names. Because beyond the application, you want to think about how do you make the name sustainable? What is the business model that you want to adopt after you have applied for this name? So those are questions that go beyond an application fee. And until you answer all these questions, it is not very advisable to just wake up and apply for a name, because after you've applied, then you have a name to operate on an ongoing basis. So we've listed people that we're calling pro bono service providers that give you advice on legal, give you advice on business development, give you advice on business models. And we are actually still inviting more people to enlist as pro bono service providers on the website. And then you can actually be linked up with people that are seeking this kind of support to reach out to you. In terms of timelines, which I will close with, so you will see how many colors here? I think 3. So you have that color that is blue, I believe, that has been running since 19 November 2024, projected to end on 19 November 2025. That is the applicant support process that has been running. As I said, we opened it last year for 12 months, and we are still inviting applications from Africa specifically to really take advantage of this process and apply if you fall in those 4 categories. We also have a process that was targeting registry service providers, meaning backend service providers. So if you're a registry operator, maybe you're a gTLD operator, you'd want to provide backend services in the next round. Say you are a .ke operator or .ug operator, you'd want to operate or to provide backend service providers, backend services to applicants in the next round. Then we had the first window that closed in 20th May. It will open again when the round itself opens in April next year. So you can still apply to provide backend services to applicants. But most importantly, you will notice that in Q2 of 2026, projected at April timing, we actually intend to open the application window for new applications, for new TLDs, for any name of your choice to apply. And on this one, everyone is actually invited to apply as long as you are an organization. So if you have a name that you are targeting that you'd like to apply for, then you can note that by April next year, we intend to open that window and anyone will be able to apply. It is important to actually also add here that you might not actually apply for a name. Doesn't mean that someone else in a different country cannot apply for that same name. So, any name you can imagine is actually up for grabs, even though there are a number of rules that have been actually inbuilt into this process that protects especially geographic names. So, for example, capital cities are protected if applied for by entities that are not those respective governments. So there is a bit of safeguards around that. Also for trademark holders, but you'll still need to be actually aware and monitor the process to see if someone has applied for a name that they should not apply for. You have a chance to object, but only if you are following. I have an ask. One of the things that we've developed as part of this is something we are calling a Champions Toolkit, which is a round of resources, presentations, presentation decks, and flyers that we have published on this particular link. And we are calling on you to, access this particular material. You are free to share them with people that you think are interested or could be interested to apply for TLDs at your own time. They're in ICANN languages, French, English, Chinese, Arabic. So you can actually access it in whatever language that you need to support your awareness, but also to share with those that might like to apply for this. That was a lot of information, and I know it is 1 o'clock already, but I'm happy to take any questions at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. These are the opportunities that are being shared. Some of them you could be hearing them for the first time. Yeah. But if you see the time that since 2012 and now we are in 2026, that shows that there is a very big gap. So the opportunity is open for you to be able to apply. Let me ask, in case you have any questions to Bob regarding to this new gTLD process. Also, the timelines have been very shared clearly, and they are to open in the second quarter of 2026. That's around April 2026 as the projected timelines as have been shared. So with the 2 years dedicated policy implementation that is leading to the finalization of the applicant guidebook, which is openly shared right now, with the 1 year for operational readiness, I think this begins to position us with an opportunity that is open to anyone to be able to apply for this new gTLD. He gave a very good example of Kampala. In case you know of at least these legislators who can apply for this, then let's protect our respective domain ecosystem. Any questions? Yes, Ismail. I see two questions. Bob, you there? They're coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, Bob. I don't know how to bring this out, but I feel it comes across as something nice. But what I'm seeing on the ground is, for example, you have .co.ug, you have .ac.ug, but it's not being hosted in the country. So to me, it's looking across like kind of cosmetic. In your presentation, it's not coming out clearly to me how this is going to build local content. Could you help clarify more on how this is going to end up having the sites that are customized to the locality being used and being hosted in that particular area?
Okay, do you have a second one? And we can combine them.
Yeah. Let's take on the second question.
First and foremost, thank you, Bob, for the insightful presentation. I had two questions, but he has mentioned one of them. And the second question is, could we know the factors that determine the cost of these, the gTLDs in the next round? Because it also helps the future applicants better understand what they have to focus on and also what they have to, you know, push for when they are using these gTLDs.
Okay, so I think I hear a question around costs broadly, but also how does this also drive local content? How can this be hosted locally? So probably I would answer the first, I'll start with the first question. Very broadly speaking, if you look at the DNS ecosystem, and I know, Daniel, you're talking about the previous speaker presented a little bit of infrastructure, a bit of the state of Uganda, or DNS in Uganda. There are different spectra of players in the DNS ecosystem. So essentially you have, just the way you have registry operators, you have registrars, you have registrants. The other people that are actually called differently, from a domain name or in the domain name industry, I could see them as registrars. But in a different light, they are hosting entities that are actually providing hosting infrastructure. So I find this a bit of an industry-wide sort of discussion on, in terms of our names, where can we, what can we do to ensure that our names are locally? As a registrant, on your end, you are looking for 99.9999, something that Daniel was talking about. How do you make that happen? So that is a different discussion, and it is targeting hosting providers in general, and how they can actually do that locally. And they will tell you the number of considerations for them, power, for example, cooling, for example, and the cost of actually powering those particular infrastructure. So as a name applicant or as a registry operator, I can actually then now just leverage these particular hosting infrastructures wherever they already exist. But remember, as a registry operator who has applied for a name, I am also keen on the same issues that the hosting people are keen on. They are keen on their cost because they want to keep the cost of the operations low. So I also want to be hosted where my hosting costs are lower. So if the cost to run a data center is high, then that cost will be passed to people that are consuming that data center. It means that my cost for registry will also be higher. If they are low because of where they are hosted already, then my costs as an applicant are also lower. So I will then tend to also go to that place. And probably this is why we have ended up with a scenario where most of this content is hosted outside our borders because of the cost element. So it's a bigger question that probably needs a whole discussion with investors, but also governments, on how they can actually intervene to bring down the cost of data centers generally lower. What drives the cost of gTLDs? So there are two parts of this question. There is the cost of application, which you will actually need to pay to apply for a gTLD. That's the cost. But then afterwards, there is an operational element. How do you then remain afloat? How does this gTLD remain afloat? How do I continue using .ug? It means it has to remain afloat. Someone has to ensure that the systems are always up. And there's a cost to that. There's human resource, there is infrastructure or hosting, there is security, there is legal. All these are cost elements in any business. So for the gTLD program, the cost of the application fee is determined by a number of factors. If I opened up what it takes to do an evaluation for every name that will be applied for, it goes through a lot of evaluation processes, depending on what name you apply for. And those evaluations are done by independent panels to make them objective. So ICANN does not actually perform the evaluation. So someone applies for .kampala as an example, and so say I apply for .kampala, and Daniel also applies for .kampala, and June applies for .kampala. And the question is, there can only be one operator at the end of the day. So how do you decide whether it's Bob, June, or Daniel that actually ends up carrying Kampala? But what if Uganda comes and says, well, none of those people should apply for Kampala because Kampala belongs to Uganda? So who makes that decision, which is an important decision to be made? Look at a name, for example, like Safari. So if someone from Kenya applied for it, someone from Tanzania applied for it, and then Tanzania says, well, Safari is Swahili, so, no one else should apply for it because it is Swahili, and Tanzania is predominantly speaking Swahili. So there has to be an independent panel that makes that decision based on a lot of evidence and things that they will consider. And those panels actually charge for those services. So those are part of the cost drivers for this particular project. And the recommendation from this process, as I said, it came from the community, was that it should pay for itself. So it is the applicants that have applied for names that will pay for these panels to do this work. And the application fee is an estimate of what it will cost to do these evaluations, depending on the numbers that will be received, so that you can actually competently carry out an evaluation process and grant a TLD if successfully evaluated at the end of the day. So most of the cost is actually going to the systems and also the panels that are projected to adjudicate over the evaluation panels. After that, you have operational costs. So your infrastructure, your human resource to keep the name open, that you'll have to consider as an individual operator, which actually applies to each and every applicant along the way, as they do today. So if you're running .ug, for example, then you have human resource, you have infrastructure, you have power, you have all those elements that you need to pay for. And therefore, you need to charge for those if you are also charging for .ug names. So that actually becomes the basis of what do you then charge for one particular name at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.